My name is Emily, and that year I had just turned 30. It was the age people say a woman's life starts to settle, but for me it was the beginning of a new chapter, filled with my greatest pride. A small, charming house I bought after 10 years of relentless hard work. It was the result of years of tightening my belt, turning down parties, skipping trips with friends, saving every dollar to turn my dream into reality. The house was in a quiet corner of Portland, Oregon. It wasn't big, just 2 bedrooms and a small yard, enough for a few flower beds, but to me it was the whole world. The day I held the keys, I told myself, from now on, my life will be in my hands. I worked at a medical equipment distribution company. I was the team lead for strategic clients, a high-pressure job that I was passionate about. I always reminded myself not to let anything distract me, especially when it came to relationships. And then he appeared. That day the meeting room was packed. The big boss introduced the new hire, Nathan, the newly recruited head of sales. He was tall, with a bright face and a confident smile that drew glances from many in the room. I stayed indifferent. Men who were overly confident never interested me. But Nathan's gaze made me a little uneasy. Deep brown eyes, steady and warm, as if he could see through the thoughts I kept hidden. In the days that followed, we started working together. Nathan quickly showed his sharpness, decisiveness, and ability to read clients well. And I couldn't deny it, he was charming and thoughtful. Sometimes I caught myself smiling at his witty remarks, before I could maintain my usual cool exterior. One evening, after we sealed a major deal, Nathan came over as I was packing up my laptop. "Emily, I have to say, the way you handled that situation was impressive. A woman as smart and strong as you is rare." He smiled, admiration in his eyes. I felt a bit shy but replied evenly, "Thank you. That's my job." "Maybe we should celebrate a little. How about dinner tonight?" Nathan asked gently, with the kind of confidence that assumed I would say yes. I hesitated, then finally nodded. "Just for work, okay?" Dinner lasted longer than I expected. Nathan wasn't just a good conversationalist, he was a good listener. He shared about his years working in other states, overseas business trips, and his dream of buying a small house near the ocean, and I, for the first time in years, felt my heart soften at these stories. When he walked me home, Nathan half joked, "Don't tell me you live alone in this area." I hesitated. Maybe out of instinct, I didn't want him to know about the house. The biggest achievement of my life, the result of years of effort. "I rent an apartment near downtown," I blurted, unsure why I felt the need to hide it. Nathan frowned slightly, then smiled. "You're careful. It's wise to be cautious living alone in this city." I forced a smile. The cold night breeze didn't chase away the growing unease inside me. From then on, Nathan showed up more and more in my daily life, not because I brought him up, but because he seemed to know how to slip into my world little by little. Since that evening, Nathan became part of my life so naturally that I didn't even realize I had started waiting for his calls, his good morning texts, or his check-ins after a long day. He always knew how to make me feel special. From the vibrant bouquets on my desk every Monday to the small, thoughtful gifts matching my unspoken preferences. Once, in the middle of a hectic contract negotiation, Nathan quietly placed a latte on my desk with a handwritten note. "Don't forget to rest. Even a warrior needs to recharge." I looked around and he just smiled from afar and went back to work. My heart, which I had promised myself to keep guarded, began to beat in unfamiliar rhythms. 3 months flew by so fast it surprised even me. One weekend evening, with a light Portland drizzle, Nathan invited me to a small restaurant overlooking the Willamette River. The warm yellow lights glowed on the raindrops clinging to the windows, making the place feel like it was wrapped in magical mist. As I sipped my wine, he slid a small velvet box toward me. "Emily, I never thought I'd meet a woman like you, strong, smart, genuine. You're where I want to come home after all the chaos. Will you marry me?" The ring inside wasn't big, but it sparkled under the light. I was stunned. In that moment, a flood of thoughts rushed through. Joy, emotion, and a faint, nameless intuition. But when I looked into Nathan's eyes, saw the hope and gentleness there, I nodded. Yep. He hugged me tightly and the whole restaurant applauded. Outside, the rain kept falling like a soundtrack to this turning point in my life. After that, everything seemed swept up in the whirlwind of wedding preparations. Nathan introduced me to his mother, Miranda, a woman in her 60s, slender, with neatly cropped silver hair and sharp eyes behind thin glasses. From the first meeting, I felt she wasn't easy to please. At that dinner, Miranda was polite, sometimes even smiling kindly, but her gaze was like an X-ray, dissecting every word and gesture. She asked about my work, my hometown, my family, and she seemed unusually curious about where I lived. "Emily, I heard from Nathan that you're living in a pretty quiet house in the city. My son speaks so highly of it." I smiled and stuck with the story I'd told Nathan. "Yes, it's my grandmother's house. She's older now and let me stay there for a while. She lives with my aunt in another state." "Oh, is that so?" Her voice dropped, eyes narrowing slightly. "How old is she? Is she in good health? The house is in her name, right?" I tightened my grip on my glass, keeping my tone natural. "She's over 80 and her health is frail. I do what I can to care for her from afar." Dinner ended with Miranda shaking my hand, her eyes full of meaning. "Nathan's lucky. You're talented and come from a solid background. A woman like you will be the backbone of the family." On the drive home, I leaned my head against the window, watching the rain veil the streets. Inside, small doubts began to form, but I told myself, maybe I'm being overly suspicious. Everything will be fine. From then on, Miranda kept calling, asking about the wedding, suggesting venues, guests, even menus. She was tactful, but it was clear she wanted to control every detail. Whenever I shared my own ideas, she would give a gentle laugh. "I have experience, dear. You should listen to me. Everything I do is for the good of you both." At first, Nathan stood by my side, but gradually he began to say, "Mom just wants to help, don't stress. She's organized so many weddings for our relatives." I smiled awkwardly. I knew I was starting to fall into a spiral of things I couldn't control. But as long as there was love, as long as there was trust, I told myself, there was still hope. Our wedding was simple, just as I wanted, mostly because I worked hard to stand firm against Miranda's interference. She had once gently suggested, "Why don't you have it on my property? It's spacious, cozy, and would save money." I politely declined, saying I preferred a small, intimate ceremony among close friends. Still, the look in her eyes seemed to record every word I said. Right after the wedding, Nathan moved into my house. Or rather, my grandmother's house, according to the story I had made up. At first, everything seemed peaceful. Nathan was still caring, still made breakfast, still asked about my work. But just a few weeks later, I started noticing small changes that stirred up waves of worry inside me. Nathan often took calls out on the balcony, his voice dropping to almost a whisper whenever I stepped out. One day, he lied about meeting a client, but I happened to see his car parked near a hidden coffee shop, the kind Miranda liked to visit. Miranda no longer kept the polite distance she once did. She called almost daily, sometimes asking about my grandmother's health, other times suggesting, "You should advise the old lady to take care of the house arrangements soon, before old age brings misfortune." One day she even brought over a thin stack of papers, smiling as she said, "Just some sample transfer forms I got from someone I know. Take a look. If your grandmother agrees to sign, the paperwork later will be simple." I gripped my teacup tightly, keeping a faint smile. "Yes, I'll ask her." But inside I burned with anxiety. Nathan's behavior increasingly unsettled me. He hosted a small party at the house, saying it was to meet close friends, but when the guests arrived, I realized I hadn't heard him mention any of them before. Strange faces, eyes that seemed to scrutinize every corner of the house, every item made me shiver. One late evening, as I came back from a gathering with friends, I saw the living room light casting a glow onto the porch. I took off my shoes, about to step inside when I froze at the sound of Nathan's voice. "I told you, Mom. Don't rush. Everything needs the right timing." Miranda's voice responded, sharp. "Timing? How much longer? Are you waiting for that girl to figure it out? That house is a gift from the heavens. Don't let it slip away. The old woman's frail. Take advantage while she's alive. I have the paperwork ready, just waiting for her to soften and sign. But don't forget, Emily isn't easy to fool." Everyone softens when they're in love, Nathan. That's what you're best at. I felt like stone behind the door. My breath caught, my heart pounded so loud I thought they'd hear. My hands trembled, nearly dropping my keys. But then I clenched my fists, stepped back, and took a deep breath to steady myself. I pushed the door open more firmly than usual, so they wouldn't suspect I'd overheard. "I'm home," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. Nathan came out right away, the same gentle smile as always. "You're home late, I was worried. Mom dropped by with some pastries." Miranda stepped out, still holding a teacup, her face unusually calm. "You're home, Emily. You look tired. Is work stressful these days?" "It's been fine, thank you." I gave a faint smile. "Thanks for visiting. I'll head up and freshen up." I walked past them, my heart racing. In my mind, the pieces of doubt were forming a terrifying picture. That night, I lay beside Nathan, the man I once thought would be my safe harbor. He slept soundly, his breathing steady while I lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling. What do they want? When will they strike? And what must I do to protect the result of my life's work? The questions swirled, tightening around my mind. But I knew that after overhearing their secret, I could no longer pretend. I had to prepare. This time, I wouldn't be a willing prey in anyone's scheme. After that night of overhearing Nathan and Miranda's calculating conversation, I had no choice but to protect myself. I began watching their every move more carefully. The next morning, when Nathan left for work, I pretended I had a client meeting, so he wouldn't worry. In reality, I stayed behind and began searching through my own house. Now, no longer a home, but a battleground I had to defend. I checked Nathan's desk drawers, where he kept his laptop and papers. Everything was unusually clean, as if he knew I'd look. But when I opened his work bag, the leather one he always carried, I found a small, black, USB drive with no markings. I hesitated for a moment, then plugged it into my laptop, my heart pounding as if someone might walk in and catch me. Inside were 3 main folders: documents, photos, and plans. I opened each one. The first folder chilled me. Scanned property papers, transfer agreements, authorization forms. All in different women's names. But the final recipient was always Nathan or unfamiliar names with photos of him. In the photo folder I recognized Nathan's face, but in various looks, sometimes bearded, sometimes clean-shaven, sometimes with a hat. Every photo had the same detail. Beside him was a woman, each with a look of trust, even happiness, unaware that the man next to them was waiting for the right moment to take it all. My hands shook as I quickly closed the files, my eyes blurred with horror. But then I took a deep breath and copied all the data to my personal drive. I couldn't let this be the only proof and risk it disappearing. That very night I called Sophia, my best friend from college, now working in the Civil Investigation Unit of the Portland Police Department. Her voice was filled with concern when she heard me mention Nathan. "Emily, what's going on? What did he do to you?" "Not yet. But I'm suspicious, very suspicious. I need you to help check him and his mother Miranda. Real names, any criminal records. I'm really worried, Sophia." Sophia didn't ask more, just said, "Send me what you have. And be careful. If you feel in danger, call me right away." I sent Sophia the entire copy of the data along with a few old photos of Nathan and whatever information I could remember about Miranda. That night I barely slept. Every time Nathan stirred, my heart jumped, terrified he had discovered I knew everything. 2 days later, Sophia arranged to meet at a small cafe by the river where we used to study back in college. She brought a thin file, but it was enough to make my heart sink. "Emily, what you suspected was right. Nathan's real name is Ethan Miles. He was accused by 2 women of property fraud, but there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. His mother, Miranda, real name Helen Miles, has a prior conviction for document forgery nearly 20 years ago. After that, the 2 changed their names and moved through several states." I froze, my fingers trembling as they clutched the cold coffee cup. "And those women?" "One in Nevada lost her house after signing unclear papers. The other in California was luckier. She pulled back just in time before transferring her property. Both said Ethan played the role of the perfect husband, slowly earning their trust." I closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. All the scattered pieces over the past month suddenly came together into a complete picture. A cruel game. And this time, I was the chosen target. Emily, what are you going to do? Sophia asked, her eyes filled with worry. I can't let them keep running this con. But I can't act rashly either. I need a plan. And I need you with me. Sophia nodded. I'll help. But remember, don't let them suspect you know. Everything has to happen at the right time. Back home, I began seeing Nathan with different eyes. Every word he said, every gesture, I saw calculation behind it. But I kept smiling, kept playing the gentle wife he expected, so he wouldn't realize the prey he thought was easy had awakened and was setting her own trap. Since that meeting with Sophia, I started watching Nathan and Miranda with cold clarity. All their sweet words were just clever covers for their scheme. I knew I had to stay calm, play the role of the trusting wife, or my plan would fail before it began. Just days later, as I had predicted, Nathan began mentioning helping your grandmother sort out the house so she can feel at peace in her old age. One evening during dinner he set his spoon down, his gaze gentle but his tone expectant. Honey, Mama and I were talking. Your grandmother is getting old, living far away with no one around. You should think about having her transfer the house to you. It'll give her peace of mind and avoid future hassle. I looked up and met his searching eyes. That night Miranda just happened to join us for dinner, as if it had all been arranged. She gave a soft smile, her voice sweeter than honey. Emily, I know you care about your grandmother, but clear paperwork is always better. I know a long-time notary, discreet and efficient. If you need, I can contact him for you. I pretended to hesitate, twisting the hem of my shirt as if I was truly considering it. After a slow breath, I inclined my head, just a little. Maybe you're right. I'll arrange to visit her this weekend and ask what she wants before we decide. Nathan's and Miranda's eyes lit up with satisfaction. I knew they thought I had fallen into their trap, but in truth, they had just stepped into the net I had quietly set. That entire week, they kept suggesting things. It would be easier if the notary came to the house. Or, don't let your grandmother overthink, just have her sign a few simple papers. I acknowledged with a slow nod, noted every suggestion, but inside I was already setting my plan in motion. I called Sophia and detailed every step they were taking. She agreed to coordinate, contacting a team of colleagues to assist. I also found a retired actress, Mrs. Rachel, who had played motherly roles in many well-known local theater productions. She agreed to help without asking for details, only saying, "Are you sure about this, Emily? This isn't a game." "I'm sure. And I know what I'm doing." My voice was steadier than ever. We rented a small house on the outskirts of Portland, simply furnished to look like an elderly woman's home. Every detail was prepared carefully. Fake family photos on the shelves, a bottle of prescription pills by the bed. No one would suspect it was just a stage for the final act. Friday afternoon, Nathan and Miranda discussed plans with me in the living room. "This Sunday, okay, dear? I already contacted Don the notary I mentioned. He'll come to the house. Once your grandmother signs, everything will be done in one morning." Nathan gently squeezed my hand, his eyes seemingly full of love. "I just want to take care of our future, Emily. I hope you trust me." I swallowed the pain in my chest and managed a soft smile. "I do trust you. Everything for the family, right, honey?" Nathan hugged me while Miranda looked at us with a triumphant gaze, as if she had orchestrated it all. That morning, Nathan, Miranda, and I set out together. They carried a briefcase. I was certain it held the prepared documents. I carried with me the belief that today the truth would come to light. When the car stopped in front of the rented house, Miranda glanced around, pleased. Just the kind of house an old lady would live in, so pitiful. Inside, Mrs. Rachel, playing the role of my grandmother, was ready. As we entered, she looked up from her wool blanket, her voice weak but her eyes sharp. "Emily, you're back. Who are these people?" I stepped forward, took her hand, and introduced them. "This is my husband and mother-in-law. They came to visit you." Nathan bowed, trying to maintain a friendly look. Miranda couldn't hide her impatience. "Hello, ma'am. We're here to help you take care of some paperwork so you won't have to worry." At that moment, Miranda's so-called notary, a flustered, sweaty, middle-aged man, appeared. But right after, from the next room, the real notary and a team of plainclothes officers led by Sophia entered. The air in the small house grew taut as a wire the instant my team and Sophia stepped in. Nathan stepped back, his eyes darting around as if seeking an escape. Miranda tried to keep smiling, but her hand gripped the leather bag so tightly her knuckles turned white. "What is this, Emily?" Nathan spoke first, his voice shaky, struggling to sound calm. I stood tall, looking him straight in the eye, no longer hesitant. "You're asking? Today was supposed to be the day you and your mother completed your plan. Wasn't everything prepared perfectly?" The real notary, Mr. Mason, stepped up to the table and pulled out a file with official seals. Sophia and two colleagues moved forward, showing their badges, their voices firm yet professional. "We've received a report about an attempted property fraud scheme. We ask all involved to cooperate." Miranda still tried to keep her composure. "Fraud? This is just a family matter. Why make it into something it's not?" I couldn't hold back any longer and let out a bitter laugh. "A family matter? Or you two trying to steal my house with forged documents? Miranda, I know everything now, even your real names." Nathan stepped forward, his hand halfway out as if to take mine, but he stopped. "Emily, who told you what? You misunderstood. I truly love you. I just wanted to secure our future." Sophia raised an eyebrow, her voice cold. "You truly love her? Then what about the drive in your bag and all those fraud files? Did you truly love the women in those records too?" Nathan's face went pale, his eyes glared at me, then darted to his mother as if pleading. Miranda still tried to salvage the situation. "Those don't prove anything. Who knows who set up who? Emily, you're being manipulated." I drew a deep breath, my voice steadier than I thought possible. "No one manipulated me. You two tried to lead me into your trap, and too bad. I'm no longer easy prey." Mrs. Rachel, the elderly actress I'd hired, now stepped out with her cane, her sharp gaze fixed on the Miles pair. "I may be old, but my mind is sharp. What's your game here, forcing me to sign my house away? How clever." The fake notary with Miranda was now drenched in sweat, fumbling to gather his fake papers and hide them in his bag. But it was too late. Sophia and her team stepped in, confiscating everything, carefully checking each page. Nathan seemed to realize there was no way out. His tone shifted, half pleading, half threatening. "Emily, you're destroying everything. You think bringing the police here will fix it? You don't understand what's at stake." I looked at him, for the first time, feeling nothing but utter disappointment. "No, you destroyed everything, Nathan. You and your mother smashed what I thought was happiness." Sophia signaled to her team. "We're detaining both of you for investigation. Your legal rights will be fully explained." Miranda protested. "This is a setup. We're being framed. She made all this up." Nathan just bowed his head, silent, as officers led them to the car. When the door closed, the space felt still. I turned to Mrs. Rachel and bowed slightly in gratitude. "You helped me more than you know." The elderly woman smiled kindly. "You're stronger than you think, Emily. Hold on to that strength." Sophia placed a hand on my shoulder, her gaze warm. "It's over. You did the right thing. Now let the law handle the rest." I looked out the window. The afternoon sun streamed through the curtains, lighting up the dust in the air, like the doubt and fear that had been swept from my heart. But I knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would still have challenges, but at least I had reclaimed peace for myself. The case of Nathan and Miranda quickly drew the attention of the local community. When the police released the evidence they had gathered, the USB containing fake documents, the testimony from me and Mrs. Rachel, and the records Sophia and her colleagues helped uncover, all doubts about their scheme became crystal clear. The investigation lasted several months. During that time, I kept working and continued living in the very house they had once tried to steal, but every night, as I lay down to sleep, I remembered the last look Nathan gave me before being led to the police car. That look held no trace of the love I once believed in. Only hatred and bitterness over their failed plan. When the trial officially began, I arrived calmer than I ever thought I could be. It was a public hearing. Nathan and Miranda sat at the defendant's table, their faces stiff, stripped of all confidence and pretense. Their lawyer tried to argue that it was all a family misunderstanding, that they had no intent to commit fraud, but the mountain of evidence presented, along with the consistent testimonies from me, Sophia, and other witnesses, crushed every defense they attempted. What moved me most was seeing Nathan's two previous victims, women who had once been scared, who had tried to forget it all, bravely stand in court. They stood with me, sharing what they had endured, how they had nearly lost everything by trusting the wrong man. In the end, after more than 2 weeks of hearings, the court delivered its verdict. Nathan and Miranda were found guilty of fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to seize property. Both were sentenced to prison and ordered to compensate the victims for their losses. As the judge read the sentence, I felt no satisfaction, only a sense of relief that filled my heart. A dark chapter had closed, returning to me the freedom I had almost lost. The divorce went quickly. Nathan didn't put up a fight, likely realizing he had nothing left to bargain with. I was officially free from that deceitful marriage, and I kept the house. Not just because it was property, but because it symbolized all my years of hard work and my pride. My new life began with simple things: tidying up the house, planting more flowers by the porch, replacing the faded curtains, and waking up each morning with a peaceful heart. Sophia and I stayed in touch. She often stopped by, bringing boxes of pastries and joking, "Emily, you've got enough material now to write a book on self-defense skills." I laughed, but deep down I knew I had grown stronger through it all. I learned how to stay cautious without distrusting everyone. I understood that trust should never be given blindly. Most of all, I realized no one has the right to decide my life but me. Whenever someone asks about Nathan, I simply say, "That was a lesson, a chapter closed, and I'm grateful for what I've learned." That fall, I joined an organization supporting women who had been scammed or emotionally abused. I didn't share every detail of my story, but with sincere empathy, I hoped to help them feel less alone. One afternoon, I sat on my porch, watching the maple leaves scatter across the yard, sipping warm tea and smiling. In life, we all have to weather storms to truly appreciate peace, and I had finally found my peace. From within, not as a gift from anyone else. My story isn't just a personal ordeal, it's a reminder to anyone: stay alert and trust your instincts. A moment of naivety can lead us into traps woven with sweet words and seemingly genuine actions. Now I live peacefully in the home that was once targeted, cherishing each moment of freedom and control. More importantly, I've learned how to set boundaries and never let anyone else decide what belongs to my life. What do you think about my story and what I went through? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories and valuable lessons about family life.